Hi everyone, Stephanie here from Via Mainstream, and we are excited about doing Webinar Wednesday today. As many of you know, we're going to be focusing on building relationships for business. And the reason I get really excited about doing these types of webinars is we often focus on the marketing. We focus on how do I do email marketing? How do I, get my social media up and running? How do I get flyers, promotions, all that tactical marketing work done? But what I like about webinars like this is this opens up new channels, new ways that you can build your business, grow your business, reach new customers, or really connect with people in your community. So I highly recommend thinking about implementing some type of relationship marketing in your business. If you're trying to go after those bigger deals, if you're trying to, like I said, reach new audiences, this is truly one of the greatest and really fun ways of doing things. I think the difference, or why some of us kind of struggle with, or are maybe a little bit unsure on should we spend time on this, is because you have so much of that basic tactical marketing to get done, and you have to get that done. You have to make time for it, but you also want to try to squeeze this in as well. So I'm hoping tonight, for those of you out there that are ready to dive in and you're like, yes, I know I need to do more with the people I meet, the people I connect with. I need to figure out how to build a bigger connection, whether you're going to leverage that for sales in the future, or if you just want to keep that continuity going. We'll talk about that as well tonight. And for the others out there that are looking for new ways to reach new audiences, maybe this is something that you just want to keep in the back of your pocket, or kind of keep in mind as you think about expanding your marketing, doing more with your marketing, because maybe you're not ready or you don't have the time to allocate to this yet. But I do want you to understand how super duper important this is. And regardless if this is something you can do today, or it's going to take you 30 days, 60 days, maybe 6 months to get there, that's perfectly fine. But this is definitely something that's going to be key. It's truly a wonderful tool to unlock a lot of possibilities in your business. So with that, we're going to get started with today's webinar. As always with these webinars, we record the sessions. So at any point in time, if you have any questions, there is a comment box on the page. I'll take comments during our presentation. I know some of you may be listening on Twitter. Some of you may be watching on our page. We'll be following on Twitter as well. If you are listening to the replay of this, please, please, please still put your comment on either our event page where you're looking at this video, or use the hashtag on Twitter, because we will check and look at these things periodically, and we love, love, love interaction, excitement, and really hearing your feedback on these things. So that's always, always fun. So if you are listening, whether you're on Google+, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on our website, let us know hello, let us know you're there, so that way we have an idea of how many people are listening live. And same thing, if you listen to this recorded, please let us know that you arrived and you're here, because we love to see that interaction as we put these out. Okay, so with that, let's start diving in and let's start talking more and more about how we can really build these relationships. And the thing that I find that people are most interested about when I do these webinars is they really struggle with, like, who should I be contacting? How do I do it? Why should I be talking to them? Because at the end of the day, there are so many people that we can potentially come in contact with. There are so many people that you can be engaging with. And the challenge is we have to balance your time. We have to use the right tool for the right purpose. So the reason I put up this slide is what I want you to marketing. When you think about building relationships for your business, it's really to unlock those larger opportunities. It's really for those bigger deals, meaning where you're getting contract deals, where someone's going to hire you. We had an example the other day. We were talking about food trucks around here, and maybe you're trying to get a deal where you are exclusively or one of the few food trucks at XYZ locations, or you're part of a group that does swinging food trucks around the city or around certain counties. Maybe you have a coaching business and you're trying to get an exclusive contract with one of the larger hospitals. So you can be partnering with them. You can be their expert to provide health coaching, advice, training, courses for their people in their hospital, or you partner with maybe their local dietitian or something like that. If maybe you're in the food business or you do product, you're looking to unlock bigger opportunities. Maybe you're getting larger distribution. Maybe you're trying to get some wholesale clients in place. So you're trying to maybe provide desserts for XYZ restaurants. Maybe somebody has 4 or 5 restaurants in a city and you want to be able to provide the dessert for them. So think of it that way. They can also be partnership opportunities where you guys are doing cross promotions and so forth. So maybe they're going to become an affiliate marketing. That's what I mean when I think about building these relationships for business. This is really seeing the bigger possibility. This isn't necessarily for your transaction-based activity. This isn't necessarily to get 20 people to sign up for your online course. This is, unless your online course is an extensive, big program, maybe you only need 20 people to sign up because it's a bigger program. It's a program that costs $1,200 or $2,000, something like that. That might make sense. But if you have a program where you're offering it for $49.95 or $29.95, this isn't that necessarily tool for that. There are other things that you can use. You can also leverage that. But tonight, what I really want to focus on is those larger scale opportunities. So those deals or those promotions or those contracts that not only can significantly change your business, but they create long-term wins for you. And because they're long-term wins, one of the challenges when it comes to relationship marketing is it can take time to develop. It's not normally something that you send out a couple of emails and all of a sudden you have a windfall. It's normally something, maybe you talk to a person for 2 months, 3 months, maybe even 6 months, and then the opportunity materializes. Maybe it takes a year for the opportunity to materialize. So I want you to set the right expectation when you start thinking about how you are building relationships for your business. The other thing I want to be careful of, and we'll talk a little bit about who to contact, is building relationships is not always about just the bottom line. And I say that in this final line that you want to be careful that you're not just chasing the money. You're not looking at partners, looking at people. You're not reaching out to people just because you see dollar signs in the relationship. I'm really big on giving back to community. I'm really big on helping people out, volunteering, cross-promotion, and really just being a really kind of ambassador for your own community, really being a representative, in a sense, sometimes role model for your community. So in that, don't always think of just the dollar signs. Think of maybe there are ways you can help each other, or that you can be each other's support system. There is so many opportunities for you to build kind of peer groups of people who are doing similar things that you're doing, so you guys can help each other in the long run, okay? So with that, let's talk about, okay, who should we contact? Because that's the challenge. You want to build relationships. You want to get it really kind of outside of the personal realm and kind of really pull it in a professional relationship. And does everyone know what I mean when I say that? Like, pull it into a professional relationship. Have any of you guys kind of struggled where you've gotten to know people or you've met people along the way, but you kind of feel like you've established maybe a little bit more of a personal relationship as opposed to a professional relationship? If you have, just tweeted or posted a comment or so forth. I'm going to just see what you guys say. The reason I bring that up is that's where most of us struggle. We struggle making the leap so that it becomes professional in nature. And what I mean by that is it's good to have that personal connection. It's good to have things that you have in common. That's what makes it more of a relationship. However, you do want to channel it in a way that you're having not just, how are the kids, how's the family, how's the spouse type of discussions, but you're able to have some of those professional discussions. Talk about what's happening in your business. Talk about what they're doing. Think about how you guys can help each other from a professional standpoint, because that will make the relationship really last the test of time, okay? The other thing is starting to understand who you're contacting. And what I did with this slide is the reason I created really 6 different buckets here is I think sometimes we combined everybody into one bucket. We see who we contact as just an individual. I'm talking to XYZ person. I want to get to know them. I want to build a relationship with them. And yes, that is personal. You definitely want to see people as individuals. But before we drill into an individual person, the challenge is you can start a tactical relationship building process as opposed to a strategic one. So what I want you to do is when you think about building these relationships, when you think about creating this, I want you to take a step back before you start to name the names of people, is sit back and say, who do I really want to contact and why? Am I looking for strategic prospects? Because am I looking to build relationships that help me grow my business? Am I looking for relationships where I'm talking to people who are maybe more community leaders so they can help me identify new target markets? Am I looking for partners, people who I can do cross promotions with, who have growth opportunities? Am I trying to connect with customers? So people who are already maybe in the fold, people who are already endorsers, people who are, already supporters? Or am I trying to talk to people who maybe have an existing relationship with, and I'm trying to explore where that can go? And the reason why this becomes so important is many of us are strapped for time. You don't have enough time to talk to everyone all the time. So when you think about your business and you think about a long-term plan, you may say, hey, Stephanie, I want to do more of this. I want to do a better job of this. And what I would say back to you, if I was coaching you, is I would say, let's pick 1 or 2 of these buckets to nurture. Let's pick one of these 2 groups of people to start to contact, reach out to, and talk to. So you start to really get a good rhythm around how to keep contacts going. You get a good idea of how to blend that in with your current to-do list, which I'm sure is crazy, crazy long. And also what it allows you to do is it allows you some time to focus. It doesn't mean we won't look at these other groups. It doesn't mean that we're leaving these on the table. What we're trying to do is use focus to get some results. Because once you get it working for maybe 2 of these buckets, you'll be able to roll it out, implement it, and keep consistency around it because you've already developed a habit, you developed a process, and you figured out how to get results from it. Because that's our challenge often as small business owners, is we have everything we want to do in the world, but we're struggling with getting results, we're struggling with time. And what I want you to do is focus first, because once you get those results, once you find that things are working for you, it'll be much easier to decide how to prioritize your day and how much time in your business you should be focusing on this, okay? The other reason I really, really, really like these buckets is if some of you out there don't already have a Rolodex of people that you're thinking of reaching out to, this will give you some clues in who you should be talking to. So if you're looking for people you want to do partnerships or cross promotion, or you're building out kind of an affiliate marketing kind of program, then you're definitely looking at that partnership bucket in the green. But this is where you're going to start to look at things like, what are their growth opportunity? What kind of reach do they have? How many Twitter followers do they have? And this is going to help you determine who to contact, because you're going to start to have criteria around each one of these buckets, meaning what makes someone qualified to be a potential partner? What makes someone qualified to be considered a leader, a community leader in your eyes, and create that opportunity for you, and so forth with these other buckets. So it helps you, from what I find, is put some clarity and kind of concrete approach behind who to contact, okay? So start with these buckets, pick 1 or 2. Now, for some of you, you're like, Stephanie, I got a list of 20 people or 10 people I know I want to reach out to. Then that's fine. We're going to do it an opposite way. You're going to take those 20 or 10 people, and then we're going to identify which one of these buckets did they fall into, so we know how to leverage that relationship. So you can approach it either way, but this tool or this page is really going to be your key to help you segment your contact list. And as I'll talk about in a few minutes, it'll also help you in developing your approach. Because what we'll do is we'll start to create a basic framework around how do you approach strategic prospects versus maybe a framework that you'll use for partnerships. All right. So with that, once we figured out either who you're going to contact by focusing on 2 groups, or on the other side, you have your list of people and we start to organize who they are, what we want to do is we have to organize the relationship, meaning we have to understand who is this contact. Like, we've really got to put more flavor behind it. The reason I like to do this, especially before you go to launch, before you kind of turn this into, sizable opportunity, is this not only will help you understand who to talk to first, and like I mentioned in the last slide, maybe even prioritize if you're trying to build your list. What this also does is it creates a track record for you. So as time passed, you'll remember who, what, when, where, how you interacted with them. Because what we struggle with, I think, sometimes is, and especially I even experience this in the vegan community, is I forget who I've met in person. I forget who I met where. I forget how many people I've maybe met multiple times. Or people that I initially met through a friend, but later on they became a client. And once they're a client, I might have forgotten that they originally were introduced to me by A, B, and C person. So what you want to do is you want to create really good track records. Now, the reason I say this is for many of you, you're going to be in business for years. I've been in business for about 6 years now. So while my memory is still pretty decent, some of my original interactions with people 6 years ago are not as top of mind. I don't always remember all the details. So what I've done over the years is I've taken notes. I've said when I've met them, how I've met them, where I've met them. I've put down who I know them through. I write down if people are vegan, if they're veg, if they're not, if they have a business, what type of business. I write down their types of skills. And when I say skills, what are the things they're great at, or what are they known for? Why do people like them? Or what do I like about them? And a lot of this is just for memory jogging. So when you do reach out to them, you have kind of data and information behind it. But like I said, it also helps you for prospecting, for targeting. And also, not every relationship matures in a very short period of time. I got an email from someone yesterday that said they met me 2 years ago at an actual event. And now they're ready. They've started to build their business. They've reached out. They're doing some promotion. And now they want to sign up for some consults because they're at a point where they're at a crossroads and they need help. So over that 2-year period, what I've done is I've tried to either document any communication I've had with that individual. So now that they're reaching out to me and it's time, I'm able to recall that information and we can continue or pick up the relationship wherever it's going to go next. Okay? Make sense? Sound good? Just let me know in the comments if you guys are following along or if you've done this before. Now, the reason I put 4 buckets up here is really just a great way to get started. You can have more buckets than this, but I tend to like to have an experience bucket, meaning what kind of experience have I had with them. I normally have an industry bucket, so it kind of feels more businessy. I normally have an interaction bucket, meaning have I talked to them on the phone, have I met them in person, have I done both, have we done chats? And then I like to do a potential, whether it's potential from a business standpoint, the size of their list, their reach, just getting an idea of what I think the potential is. Maybe they could be a mentor. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is all about sales. This could be someone that I see this as a potential for something else, okay? All right, so now we know who to contact. We start to organize these relationships. Then the next thing is we have to build the process, meaning how are you going to communicate? How are you going to talk to people? And what I like to do is I like to create kind of a couple of standard approaches. It doesn't mean you're going to do this to the T, meaning when you're rolling it out and you have 10 people that you're building a relationship with, it doesn't mean you're going to do step 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5. There will be some variation. But what I like to do is figure out my general plan of attack, my general plan of approach. And the reason being is this helps me know what I need to do next. It allows me, when I build an actual specific plan for someone, I can schedule things on my list. I can schedule things in my calendar so that I don't forget to reach out to someone. So I don't forget to schedule an event or a follow-up or to send them information and so forth. If I have a general plan of, hey, these are my 5 touch points I would like to have with them over the XYZ period that I've determined, then I can schedule this in and make sure it gets done. Because if you're anything like me, things come up, things happen, you get busy, and what'll happen is you'll start to have gaps in your communication. And what I find is to keep those gaps down is you create an approach. Now, what I did on this page is I created 4 different approach examples. So in blue, that's approach number 1. In red, that's approach number 2. In green, that's approach number 3. And 4 is approach number 4. So you guys kind of get the logic. I also tried to color code it to the earlier page on who to contact. So if you are going back and looking at the slides or looking at the earlier presentation and you look to who to contact, as a general sense, my approach number 1 is going to lean towards potential strategic prospects. My approach number 2 is going to lean towards community leaders, partnerships, and existing relationships. Now, I did this as an example so you have a starting point, but this is something you want to build for yourself or leverage what I have here and just tweak it. I mean, you're fully free to even copy it 100% if you'd like, but this is just a starter for you. Now, the reason I created 4 different approaches for 4 different groups is to give you some variation, but you may find you only need 2. You may find that you only need 6 things that you do and you just pull on those 6 things when they're necessary, when they're needed. You have to cater this to your approach. But like I said, to get started, if you're new to this process, then I highly recommend creating at least 4 different approaches and then aligning that approach with the type of contact that person is. And I'll give an example in the next slide, so we'll make this even clearer, okay? But let me walk you through what I mean by these approaches. So if I take step 1 is often what I'll do with maybe strategic partners, people that I'm really trying to build a bigger relationship with, provide them maybe some background on my expertise, what I can offer them, how I can do things differently. And one thing I'll tend to do is maybe I'll send them kind of an ebook download. I call them ebooks. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're short. Most of the time they're fairly short, just because I'm not a huge writer. But what I do is for my big strategic partners or people who are trying to understand what I do, what are my expertise, how I can help, I may start with a document that I'll send to them that they can download, that they can access. And this is something to remember. It's a strategic partner, so I'm not sending this to my email marketing list. I'm sending this maybe to 10 people. I'm sending this maybe to 4 people that I specifically want to work with and do something bigger. And in this ebook, I normally give them a little background on my approach or my recommendation for their clients, for their customers, or for something that they're looking to do. Then often I'll follow up. I'll send a follow-up email depending on the frequency or how quickly I want to kind of establish the relationship. It could be a week after, 2 weeks after, maybe even a month after they receive the ebook download. It just depends on the relationship. And normally my email follow-up is to see if they had a chance to read it, if they had any questions, and also maybe some recommendations if they haven't had a chance to work on it yet. The next thing I'll do is sometimes I'll follow up with maybe a checklist download, or I'll send them a link to something I'm working on, especially these individuals. If I'm working on something new or I'm working on a new checklist that maybe I am going to release to the masses and give to everyone, I may give them a sneak peek. I may let them know, hey, the ebook I was telling you about how to kind of, grow your email list and build your email list and really kind of connect with more people. I created this cool checklist that I think is going to work for my clients, but I thought I'd send it over to you just in advance so you can use it, leverage it, or just check it out. And what happens is I'm constantly providing them with information, showing them my expertise, and they're also always getting kind of the latest, the greatest information. I might invite them to a webinar. So if I invite them to a webinar, same thing. It may be an exclusive webinar, maybe a small group of people that I'm going to train, I'm going to educate, I'm going to talk about a certain project. Or I'm going to allow them come to a webinar that they'll get to see where I'm talking to maybe clients. Maybe it's a paid webinar, but I'll invite them in as a special guest so they can see how I work with them. And then finally, I may provide them with a special offer. Especially this is someone that if I'm trying to build, I'm turning them into a prospect. So in my case, or maybe if you're someone like a coach or a trainer, this may be someone that you're working with a local gym. This may be someone because you want to partner with them and offer services to their people or develop content or information for their people. So you're showing them your expertise and allowing them to experience your expertise that you offer to your customers through, they get to see that experience through your customer's eyes, in a sense. And when you do a special offer, you may say something like, hey, I normally do customized programs for people for this price, but I thought, since we're new or working together, and I'd love to maybe get the opportunity to do a 5-part training series or a 5-part cooking class for your people, I'd like to maybe offer it for XYZ. We can do a pilot run. That's how you build that relationship. You're not starting off with the offer. You're not starting off with the sale. What you're doing is showing expertise, giving them an opportunity to see what you do. And if you see them as a prospect, then ultimately you may have that offer in the end. But for other people, maybe for community or community leaders, you may do something where, especially if they speak at a lot of events and you tend to travel and speak at events too, you may do approach number 2, where you reach out to them before the event. You contact them and let them know, hey, I'm going to be at the event. I'd heard you're going to be speaking. I'd love to connect while you're there. Then when you get to the event, you connect. You walk up to them, you introduce yourself, you let them know before they speak, or if you see them before they start speaking, and introduce yourself. Because most of the time for speakers, it's much quieter before their presentation than after their presentation. The other thing you might do is when you make that connection, you may say, hey, do you mind if I reach out to you after the event, because I'd love to talk about how we can work together, or how we can collaborate, or maybe how we can help each other, or I'd love to keep in touch. Would you mind if we set up like a little Skype session for a meet and greet? Or if a person's in your local area, you may meet them for juice or tea or lunch or something like that. So that's your meet and greet. Then after that, you may start to do things on Facebook where you tag them in post. You recommend them to people in your Facebook. Maybe you go on their blog, their social media channel, and comment. But as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm creating different layers of communication, contacts, and engagement as you're building that relationship. So when you think about building a relationship with people, don't just think about email. Don't just think about, I'm going to send an email, how you doing today? How was the week? How was everything? That stuff's good. You need those follow-up emails, and I have some examples here where you will do that. But what you also want to be able to do is communicate in different ways. You want to do things like I have here where you're retweeting some people. Maybe you're sharing an article that you thought would be interested, they might be interested in. Especially in number 3. Number 3 is more of an example where someone you maybe don't personally know and you don't have their personal email to contact them. So you might just follow them on Twitter. You might retweet, send them an article, ask them if you can connect, and then provide an offer to help them. Because it's very easy to always ask people, can you help me? Can you help me? But I feel you build more rapport. I feel you build more goodwill. And I also think it's just the right thing to do, to often ask how you can help them before you turn that request around. Okay? Because I think it builds a better relationship, and it also gets you in the practice of helping as opposed to always asking. All right? So like I said, look at these approaches, build a couple for you, so then when it's time to match this up with the client, you'll have that information. So now that we have some processes, we know who to contact, we've categorized people, you want to start to put the formula together. You want to start to create the contact plan. And the way to do that is, I did this in a grid just to give you a basic idea, but I'll talk in a few minutes about tools and how there's so much better tools these days in the market than using an Excel document. But for most people, I tell them to get started in Excel or something like this. It's in a table because it's easier to document, to look at, to put all your information down. So phase number 1, let's get those customer names in those columns. If you're new to building relationships for business, start with a short list. Start with 5, start with 10 people. Don't start with something overly aggressive. Even if you're not new to it, a list of 100 people is pretty aggressive. So always start with something very manageable. And think of it this way. Think of it more of how many people are you going to keep in contact with in a specific period of time. Because you plan maybe 100 people over the year, and that's not bad. But to think that you're going to talk to, interact with, and keep up with 100 people on a monthly, weekly basis is a lot of work. And for some people, if you're not running a full-time business, it's not too bad. But for most people, that's pretty difficult. So we're really going to be looking at building a tight, strong list, 5, 10 people, so you can build that rapport, get some results, see how it works, and then what you can always do is once you get that core list going, once you get that kind of results happening, you can always start to say, okay, then every month I'm going to add on 3 more contacts. Every month I'm going to add on 5 more contacts. And ultimately you'll get to your desired full list. It may take you a year, it may take you a little bit longer, but what happens is I feel like you'll create a stronger and more sustainable process if you do it that way, okay? The other thing is when you start with a document like this is not only we're going to list the names, so we got our 10 people in column number 1, we're going to say what type of customer they are, so leaning back to what we talked about, who to contact, just so we have a good classification of who they are. And the reason I bring this up, not only in this stage, is people will move around. Some people will be partners at one point, and some people will be leaders, because over time, people's business grow, their reach grows, and also your interest in them may change. So that's why it's important to really hone in on what type of customer, how do you want to tag them in your database. Some people may get tagged as 2 different types of customers just because there's been some overlap, and that's okay. But try to really put people in each one or 2 buckets so that you have a general idea of what type of customer they are. Then we're going to do the step that we talked about before. We're going to define those relationships. Like I put in here, you may say someone's vegan, they have 10,000 followers, you met this person in person. Maybe a person's a fitness coach and a blogger. So you're just starting to understand who they are. Then the next phase is frequency, because that's the key. Once you figure out who you want to contact and why you want to contact them, you always want to say, well, how often should I contact them, Stephanie? What point am I annoying versus at what point am I just right? Or at what point someone has no idea who I am because I just randomly contact them every once in a while. And the way to take that either anxiety around it and also a way to make it really specific is it has to do with your goals. It's a combination of your goal, your approach, and what your expected results are. Often, when I think of people who you are maybe a community leader, what I often do is I'll start with maybe an initial 30-day get-to-know plan. And this is something where I'm going to be doing something that's going to feel like a weekly touch point. Now, when I say a weekly touch point, I don't mean I'm sending them an email every single week. This goes back to the approach that we talked about before. This may be someone that I'm going to comment on their blog. I'm going to jump on their social media feed. I'm going to do things. I'm going to retweet. I'm going to interact with them in multiple ways, but I'm going to do it over a tight period in the beginning just to get my grounding in, see if there truly is some synergies or an opportunity there between us. And then I may switch that person depending on what I'd like to do with them, depending on if I'm trying to do something like here, you're looking for maybe a potential endorsement because ultimately you want them to maybe help you grow your list. I may switch from a weekly to maybe a monthly follow-up. Because what happens is in that first 30 days, the person is starting to get to know me, starting to understand who I am, what I stand for, you're getting to know them, and then you're determining, yeah, this is something that may be an opportunity, and I want them to do some type of endorsement of me, whether it's putting a link on their website, whether it's letting me write on their blog, maybe their magazine or something like that. So I'm just giving you ideas, but that is the key. Once you have a name in that bucket, it's going to be much easier to commit to a specific frequency. But for the most part, people are going to fall into one of these 4 buckets. They're going to get into the 30-day get-to-know weekly and then shift to a monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Or people are going to be in what I kind of call the take action frequency. And what that means is this is someone that I'm trying to build a specific campaign. Maybe they're an affiliate, as an example. We're trying to get them up and running some type of partnership. And if I'm doing some type of partnership or cross promotion, many of those people I'm going to be talking to every 2 or 3 days, but over a specific tight period of time. So once we get the program, the partnership, once they agree, we get it up and running, we're going to be talking, and then the same thing. We're probably going to shift to a monthly or quarterly approach. The other thing you may have is you may have some people that are just people that you met, you want to keep in touch with. You're not necessarily saying that there's a project or a campaign or something you're working on right now, but it's someone that you want to keep kind of top of mind. And also you want to keep that contact going. So that may be someone who falls into that monthly bucket that I have here, like people you've met, Or if you're trying to do something from a customer standpoint, maybe you have some great customers that are working with you, have worked with you in the past, have signed up, but you want to kind of eventually squeeze them up into maybe an upgrade or some type of upsell. You may keep yourself top of mind by every quarter dropping an email, sending a note, sending some materials, giving them advanced previews of content and so forth. That's how you build your plan. That's how you build your program. But like I did today, I kind of give you a lot of different options. At the end of the day, you want to have one approach for each person. So customer number one is going to be on that 30-day get to know. Customer maybe number two, maybe on the take action. Excuse me, I shouldn't say customer. I really should have said individual, because there don't have to be customers. So it's a little typo, I guess, for mine. I just should have said name. But the idea is, so if you have person number one, person number two, person number three, person number four, if you're using this as a design, each one of those people would be tagged based on their frequency. And then we'd go to the approach like we talked about before. And now you start to schedule your approach based on that frequency. So if you're going to do something like approach, let's see, if you're going to do maybe approach number 4 and someone's on a monthly schedule, what you may do is you may follow them on social media month number 1. Month number 2, you may do some commenting. Month number 3, you're going to ask for the meet and greet. Month number 4, you're going to send them the article. And month number 5, you're going to send something as a congratulatory email, whether it's something they did great in their business, something, just read their feed. Most people have some really exciting stuff happen to them over the last few months. So most likely you should have something you can either congratulate them on, recognize them on, or show some of their appreciation for what they've done. So that is how you pull it together. And that's also how it becomes less of a burden, because now you're starting to create scheduling around it. And then each month, what's going to happen is you're going to schedule this. And we'll talk about the different tools. The basic version of it would be to use something like your calendar, so that you'll have a pop-up that comes up maybe 2 days before you're supposed to contact. Your calendar will say you're supposed to do it on Thursday, and you'll send yourself a reminder 2 days before that you're going to need to do your monthly contact to contact Jill, for your identifying synergies and your referral lead opportunity that you have in place. And that way, every single month, you'll get a reminder. You'll never miss to do it. It's on your to-do list. And now it turns into something that becomes a repeatable process in your business. Also, because you've done it this way, you start to schedule it, you started to make it part of the way you do business, it starts to squeeze into your schedule. What I did for a lot of people is when I do this, and for me, sometimes I do this ongoing, sometimes I'm running out of time, and sometimes I do this in 60-day approaches. So for 60 days, I'll work on some types of contacts, and then I'll go dark for a month, and then I'll pump it up again and start communicating and talking to people. Not because I want it to kind of go dark and come back up, just because we're a small team. I don't always have the resources, so I schedule things based on around launches, around campaigns, around travel schedules, and so forth. So if I'm traveling 1 month, I may have less contacts in that month, and that's what I mean kind of going dark a little bit, or I should say quiet, because I have travel commitments, so therefore that month is going to be a harder month for me to communicate, okay? And then the last thing I just want you to think about when you're putting this together is start basic. Like I said, when you start with 5, 6, 7 people, schedule it in your system and schedule in 20 minutes in your calendar. Schedule 30 minutes in your calendar so that you have not just the reminder, but you allocate the time to do it. Because by putting that 30 minutes in there, it ensures that it becomes a priority for that day, and it also ensures that you have the time to get it done, so it doesn't become wishful thinking like, I should have sent an email on Thursday. The idea is that from 2 to 2:30 on Thursday, I put aside 30 minutes in my calendar to make sure that I get to all my contacts for that month. All right? So now you got the format, now you got the contact plan. Some of you may be like, Excel, oh my goodness, Stephanie, I'm pulling my hair out. What do you mean? How am I going to keep all this information in Excel? I'm going to have a million columns. Isn't it going to drive me crazy? And the answer is yes. In Excel, it's going to be very, very difficult to do. So that's why I highly recommend that you're going to need to upgrade and get some tools in place. There are so many great tools out there. Now, for some of you, you're starting out, you're a solopreneur, you got to keep those expenses down. You may start with Excel with your first 5, your first 10. As your business grows, you'll look at using some of these tools. Or what I tell a lot of people is some of these tools have 30-day trials. Even HighRise will allow you to put, I think, they still have it where you can get like your first 250 people into HighRise for free. So look for those free opportunities and leverage them, because what you ultimately want this to turn into is a database. You don't want this to just be a flat file that kind of feels like a diary documenting everything you're doing and who you're talking to. You want to use some of these database tools, because what they'll allow you to do is tag people in these categories I've talked about. They'll allow you to have comments, take notes from your meetings. You'll also be able to link them to what they call deals or proposals. So anyone who is maybe a strategic prospect or maybe a reliable customer that you're trying to upsell, you'll be able to track if you sent them a proposal throughout this process. If you've ever, they've either requested or you thought it was right for you to talk about a special discount, you'll be able to track that stuff in real time. And because it's a living, breathing kind of software database, it will timestamp it for you. So a year from now, 2 years from now, or even if you send out a proposal to someone and they say, oh, time's not right now, but they call you in 3 months, you'll be able to go back. Instead of sorting through your emails and trying to figure out what proposals did I send them, how did I save them, what price did I put in there, all that information can be in your what they call CRM system, which is your customer relationship management system. So I highly recommend investing in this if you take relationship marketing seriously. And like I said, you don't have to go high. Nimble just upped their price. I think it's $25 a month. It used to be $15 a month. Contactually, I think it's about $20 or $29. And like I said, HighRise, I think it's $24 a month, but they do have a free option. So feel free to use the free option until you grow out of it. But I do think that these tools are going to help you get there. Okay? And then as we wrap up today's session, let me just check. So far, any questions about how to do it, who to contact, why? Is this kind of making sense, feeling good? For maybe some of you out there that felt it was a little scary, or how are you going to manage it all? Can you feel or see how this can work for you, how this can work in your business? I'm just going to look and see if you guys have any comments so far. Someone said, yep, they've struggled with how to keep the contacts going, so they like the idea that I said schedule it in the system and the reminders. Yeah, that's really key. That really, really, really helps. I see a comment here about, the process. Yeah, the process is important. Think about how do you want to create your process. There's a question about the slide that I did for process that, do they have to be unique? Does every contact have to be different? The answer is the processes that I put out there, the 4, they don't have to be completely different, because you can still do a different type of email follow-up as an example. One email follow-up, like I said, can be a personal congratulations or acknowledgement of something that someone did. Another email follow-up could be maybe you had a chance to read their book and you want to make a comment or give them a review. Maybe you did a review of their book on Amazon and just want to give them a heads up and let them know that you did a review. I mean, your email follow-ups can really vary. Same thing with your social media. I use SM as an abbreviation, but you may do something on Instagram 1 month or 1 week, and another week you may be on Facebook, and another week you may be on their Twitter page. So yes, you can create variation in how you use the tool, but think more about how are the tools that you're using creating a deeper relationship? How are the tools that you're using helping the other person? And how are the tools that you're using or deciding to use are helping you achieve your ultimate goal? Because there are some people you're just going to want to keep in contact with. You just like the person. You just want to, it's just almost building a quasi-business friendship, type of thing, or someone that's kind of like your gentle mentor, collaborator, person you talk to and vet with. You will have those people. And they are still great and wonderful business relationships. But you also will have some that you want to have in strategic in nature that are designed or developed with a mutual beneficial relationship in mind. And with those, you want to make sure that you have plans in place on how you can help them and how they can help you. Because otherwise, sometimes those relationships can get thin because you're not best friends. You don't share things in common. They're not the person that you're going to have lunch with, once a month, or every time you see them at a veg fest, you guys have dinner together. You have a different type of relationship, so you want to make sure that you find something in common. And normally the business side of it is a really strong connector. Okay. And then the last thing, I just wanted to give you guys some follow-up do's and don'ts and recommendations as you're working through things. Is we've talked about frequency a lot, so I think I'm going to probably lay off of that one and hit the next one. Is always think about a good reason to connect. I think a lot of times when we struggle about building relationships and connecting with people, we kind of feel like what should I say? And birthdays are a great time to do it. Facebook has gotten so much better at just helping us all remind us of everyone's birthday. So, connect with people on Facebook and look for their names when they pop up for birthdays, or look in Facebook. Facebook will tell you in advance how many people whose birthdays are coming up. There's also a way to download it into your calendar, which I've done with some of my friends and so forth via Facebook. So think about things like that. People who have special events or activities, people who put on special events, put those dates in your calendar, because most people do annual events. So if someone who hosts a Veg Fest is maybe a partner or a collaborator, always put in their date. Most people, like the Boston Veg Fest is normally in October towards the end. The Health Fest, which one of my clients, hers is normally around April. Most people do things around the same time. So think about that. The other thing is keep in mind what people read, what people get their data and their information from. So it's always great. When I say send an article, often I'm talking about maybe an article that's recently published about a topic they think someone would be interested in, whether it's a medical journal, whether it's an article in New York Times that talks about veganism or health or the change of health or anything, even if it's something that's maybe more satire or something that you're like, oh, I can't believe they wrote another one of these things. I forget. I can't remember who recently wrote an article, but I don't know if it was Time or somebody where they were talking about the benefits of butter. And I was like, what? And, I send that out to some of my friends because I'm like, the misinformation, when people misunderstand studies, I was kind of giving my perspective, and I was almost slash venting and, sending it out to them because I knew they're going to echo my same feeling. So think about those things, because that's a great way for a person to connect with you. And with recently published articles, these are things that are timely, and it makes sense to connect and reach out to someone as opposed to just saying, how you doing? How was your weekend? Okay. The other thing is, when you reach out to people, keep it short, don't ramble. Because when it's 2 and 3 pages, people are probably going to say, oh, I'll read it later. I'll get back to it later. And they might forget. Remember, most of us are reading our emails on our phones. So if you're going to send someone a quick message, just say, hey, it's a great article. I got fired up when I read it. So let me know if you got fired up too. Here's the link. Something really cute, clever, and short. Put in links in there when people are posting links. Allow people to quickly go to the content as opposed to putting all the content or burying it in there. Don't put huge attachments or anything like that, because if you want them to respond, they're just going to be more likely to read it. And then last thing is, when you're reaching out and building relationships, like I said, even though this is for business, 80% of your follow-ups should have nothing to do with sales. They really shouldn't. And when I say that, they're not going to have promotions, they're not going to have offers, they're not going to tell people that they can buy this or they can do this. You really have to spend time to develop that relationship pre and post offer. Because even if someone says yes, they want to take that offer, or no, they don't, the timing's not right, you still want to keep building that relationship. Or say someone said they want to partner with you, but they're not ready, or they'd like to do some referrals, but this is a busy time for them in their business. You want to make sure you keep that relationship going. So therefore, those follow-ups, those interactions should be fun, they should be light, they should be the things that make people remember you and connect with you as a person, as opposed to a person feeling like everything you do has an ulterior motive. And honestly, relationship building is about relationships. Don't build relationships with people just because you want that monetary bottom line. You really want it to be about sustainability. And like I said, it should be mutually beneficial to each of you in the relationship. Okay? So with that, you can read the other bullet points on the page. I'm looking at the time. We're about to wrap up and get to the top of the hour. So I'm just going to look really quickly, see if we have any other questions. But I hope you enjoyed today's webinar. I hope you got a little bit better grasp on how to really build these relationships, how to break it down, how to put an action plan in place, what tools to use. And then ultimately, I wanted to give you a couple quick tips that you can use to implement, to drive change, to maybe not get caught up in just thinking email is the only way to follow up. And then obviously, like I mentioned here before, not only doing that 80-20 rule, but love when you can be timely. So use your social media to help you know when to email someone because you'll notice something about them, or use your Twitter list to help you know what's going on in someone's life so you can get those congratulatory emails and so forth out, and they'll be very timely because you'll understand what is going on in their lives. All right? So with that, thank you again. I'm looking just to see if we have any quick questions. Most of them are comments. People like the tips. Someone made a comment about following up in 48 hours. Yeah, 24 hours is even better. So yeah, good comment. Yeah, the quicker you can follow up, better. I just put 48 hours for most people only because of travel time, especially when you meet people in person. But absolutely agree with you there. The 24 hours would be good. Let's see what other questions we have here. I don't see any other questions. Most people are just saying comments. This is good. This is helpful. Something I can put in place. Oh, I do see one more question here. Someone asked, how much time should I be dedicating to relationship marketing? What I say to people, if you want to get serious about it, if you have a nice list, like a 10%, 10 people on your target list, you're probably going to spend about 10% of your time a week working on relationship marketing. That's just a general rule because this is something that's slow and steady. And what it will do is once you find an opportunity, or once you find someone that maybe you are going to do a partnership or a collaboration or affiliate, that number is obviously going to go up from 10% to maybe 40% of your time for a 2 or 3 week period. But what I like to do is I'm big on creating marketing that's steady every single week and something you're constantly doing. So for most of you, it's probably going to be about 10% of your time a week. And what that means is that may translate to about an hour, maybe 2 hours a week, where depending on how much time, maybe let's say 2 hours to 4 hours a week, where you're building lists, reaching out to people, communicating. Some of you may have a smaller list, and maybe it's not that much time per week. Maybe you're doing it on a monthly basis. If you're doing it on a monthly basis, you're probably going to have the equivalent of 1 or 2 days a month that you're going to be dedicating to building relationships, reaching out to people, collaborating, and so forth. The reason I say it's more 10% a week is because when you email people, they don't always email you right back. So I find that when you do your monthly reach out, you may email somebody on a Thursday, but they'll respond to you on Tuesday. So that 10% is going to cover you for that response on Tuesday. Okay. Other than that, I think we're good on questions. So as always, thank you for joining me for Webinar Wednesday. I really appreciate you guys spending your evenings with me. I really hope this has been helpful, and I'm so glad we had a chance to talk about this topic because, like I've said before, I think it's super important. It can be tough in small businesses on how to make this work, but I really think this is a huge way to unlock opportunities, reach new heights, reach new markets, and really just be an amazing collaborator, connector in your community, which I think is super important. And also for many of us who have internet businesses, many of us who maybe work from home, it helps you reconnect with people because, when you build your own business, you're not maybe going into work every day, going in like maybe you did in the past if you kind of had that 9 to 5. And sometimes we can feel out of touch. But this relationship marketing kind of approach can really help you pull yourself back into the fold. And even though you're working remotely, you really never lose touch of the pulse of what's happening in the community. and you never kind of feel like you're alone. And I think that's really important, and a thing that can happen to many of us entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, that you kind of feel like you're floating out there by yourself. But I believe by putting these in place, not only will you feel more grounded and have amazing relationships, but you'll be able to do amazing things with the partnerships, the prospects, and even the customers that you connect with via this process. Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you again, and good night.